Let me ask you specifically about Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
which can, of course, be used in conjunction with building an email list. But if you would talk about Facebook ads, what do you do? Do you do picture ads? Do you do video? Do you use other things besides Facebook? What if you would give us a feel for your involvement with that?
Well, I am learning as well, and I think you have to realize that with all of this, whether you're just posting on a site or whether you're trying to advertise, it changes all the time. So you are constantly learning what the new features are, what things can do now that they couldn't do then, what they can't do now that they used to do. Mm-hmm. So it is a constant learning curve. And I don't do nearly as much Facebook advertising as a lot of my friends do. I'm really just kind of wading back into that. But a couple of things that I've learned as best practices from people who I know who do this very successfully is ads don't always have to be the book cover. Sometimes there's a reason to put the book cover out there, especially if you're running a campaign for visibility. If you're just running a campaign for awareness, then having the book cover out there with maybe a teaser, doing a graphic with that, so it's not just the book cover, because book covers are usually the wrong aspect ratio. They get chopped off or squished. You want to have it in a graphic, which is really easy to do with Canva, which is a free program, which is kind of like the poor man's Adobe Photoshop. Real easy to do, even if you don't have graphic design skills. So if you're running a campaign for awareness, having the book cover out there is a good thing. If you are running maybe link clicks, then you can use an evocative stock photo that you paid for. Always pay for your stock photos, don't just grab them off Google. That kind of has the feel for the book. Is it spooky? Is it romantic? Is it a thriller? Is it a mystery? And you can say that in an image. Maybe it is the full moon through bare trees, and this is obviously a spooky forest. And then you have a headline and you have a description that sends people, maybe you're sending them to your website, maybe you're sending them to your series page or your author page on Amazon. And now people have a real opportunity to buy from you, and you're doing it by, you're not just showing them a book cover, you're giving them a feel for something. And that's a nice mix, a nice way to mix things up so that people don't start tuning out your photo. Because if you're always using just the same photo of your book cover, people have seen it before. So now they don't register it when they see it too many times. Mm. But if sometimes they see your book cover and sometimes they see this photo that makes them stop and go, oh, I wonder what that is. That's kind of cool. It's a reason for them to click to find out what's going on. We're all curious. We all want to find out what that thing is. And so that's one way to mix it up. Interestingly enough, building your mailing list helps you do better Facebook ads because there's something called a lookalike audience. And this is where you can export your mailing list to a file that Facebook can read. Now, it's not going to steal that mailing list. It's not going to spam your people. What it is going to do is run it through its comparison and say, who has signed up to hear from me on email and is also on Facebook? They're the most likely people to buy. Let's not only show these ads to them, but let's show it to people who are like them according to key descriptors. I don't pretend to know how all that works in the background, but it's basically the friends of friends may bring friends kind of concept. That if this person is on your mailing list, then people who are like them in key ways would probably also like to be on your mailing list if they only knew who you were. So they're all probably interested in your ad. Mm-hmm. That helps you take this massive Facebook audience and squeeze it down into a manageable number, because otherwise you're sort of yelling into the void if it's too big. You don't want it too small. You don't want it too big. And it is much more targeted than just saying, I want to show my ad to people who like books, or I want to show my ad to people who like fantasy books. Well, okay, there are a million subgenres in fantasy. Just because somebody likes, adventure fantasy doesn't mean they want sword and sorcery fantasy. And Amazon's descriptors don't get that fine. But comparing them to the people who like your stuff enough to sign up for your mailing list. Now that's a much better measure. So that's one thing I have learned to do. And I'm running my first ad campaign in a while, 2 different ad campaigns. One is for link clicks and one is for exposure. And that was by design because I wanted to see how they'd perform. One for Morgan Bryce, one for Gail Z. Martin. Both of them are run against the lookalike audience for my mailing lists for those respective names. And I'm pretty pleased with the results, even running on something like a $3 a day budget. I'm happy with the results. And when you run a small budget like that, it lets you do a couple things. For one thing, it shows you, because you can see which ads are performing and which ads aren't. Well, then the next time you run a campaign, don't use the pictures that didn't get any link clicks. Don't use the headline or the description that didn't get any link clicks. Now you've had a way to kind of see what worked and what didn't. You can also set things up so you load like 6 pictures and you load the same headline. You load slightly different headlines, descriptions, and calls to action. And Facebook mixes and matches them depending on who they think, what they think will work best with the person they're serving it up to. Kind of scary. I don't want to think about that too hard, but it's possible. Mm-hmm. They know so much about you. And I did that with one of the campaigns. So now I can even see not just which picture worked, but I can see, oh, I did 4 different headlines and 2 of them performed much better than the other 2. Well, the next time I won't use the other 2. That means the next time I do a campaign, I can take what I've learned from this $3 campaign, $3 a day campaign. And if I do a $5 a day campaign, now I'm not wasting my money on those ads that didn't perform. I've learned that. And I think that's something you have to look at every time you run a campaign is what worked, what didn't, drop those things that didn't work, no matter how much you thought they were great. Obviously other people didn't. And keep refining that. That's what, Procter and Gamble and the big consumer brands do. They do A/B split testing where they'll run one version of an ad in one market and one version of an ad in another market. And then they see which one works better against the same kind of audience. And then that's what they roll out nationally. And that's what you're really getting a chance to do here, which sounds complicated, but it really isn't actually that complicated. So that's a little bit of an advanced technique over just, here's my book cover, let's run an ad. And that doesn't mean you should never run your book cover. Great way to get awareness. But if you're going to be doing this frequently or ongoing, and you don't have a new book cover every month, then you want to look for ways for it not to get tuned out by people. Because we know that people need 7 to 30 touches to go from a window shopper to a buyer. But if you get too many of those, they just tune you out as noise, and you don't want that to happen. So that's why there has to be variety so that they're always seeing something new and unexpected.
I've been interviewing Gail Z. Martin. Thank you for the enlightening answers. Some of them might have been a little more difficult than others, but I appreciate you taking the time, and this was great stuff. It was excellent.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the chance to be here. I hope it was helpful. And you don't have to jump in the deep end of the pool. Start with the easy stuff and go from there, because that's what all of us do. So don't get intimidated because I talked about a few advanced things. Go in the shallow end first, get comfortable, and then you can work up to the hard things later.
I definitely will. And I'm sure many of the viewers will too. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.